All right, here we are, Jimmy, Jacob, Celtics heading back to Cleveland. Eastern Conference
back
Finals.
to the
Only
land.
this time they're up 2-0 and not down 2-0. Guys,
wow, this series is completely different than last year.
What is Cleveland going to do to avoid a 3-0 hole? Jacob, let's start with you.
I think Kevin Love's going to have a big game in Game 3 at home.
You don't think Game 2 is big enough? You think he's going to go bigger?
22-10 he had in Game 2, I think.
He's gonna go bigger. I think he's gonna hit a couple more threes. I think LeBron will probably have. What do you mean no? Like I just don't know why.
What would compel you to think that?
The Cavaliers.
What is it in Kevin Love's game?
Because Kevin.
That's a yup. Kevin Love's gonna definitely show up. This is playoff Kev. He's been resting for Game 3,
Jimmy,
and he's gonna unleash.
They're playing in Cleveland.
Okay.
On their home court, so I just expect all the players basically to do a little bit better than what they've done these past 2 games. So if Kevin Love hits a couple more threes, if Kyle Korver comes off the bench, if he's not going to start,
if Rodney
in Game
Hood
3,
decides he wants to play,
if Rodney Hood decides he wants to appear in a game,
okay,
then he may, and if he wants to hit a couple threes in front of his home crowd, he can. If Tristan Thompson wants to rebound a little bit better, he only had 6 rebounds tonight. Only maybe is a strong, but he's a double-digit rebounder.
Yeah, especially
and
against
has done
Boston.
well against Boston in the past,
right.
Josue. So a little bit better on the rebounding because they got out rebounded by 1 tonight.
Sure. So they just need to play way better than they play in the first games. This is what stood out to me in Game 2. When the Celtics were trailing in the first half, it felt like the Cavs were playing really, really, really good basketball, right? And the Celtics were just kind of playing okay basketball, and they were always within striking distance. And it was like as soon as the second half came around and Rozier got hot and Horford started to do his thing, it was like they were just clearly the better team.
Just had no answers.
It's like the Cavs just couldn't stop them because they weren't hitting. LeBron James wasn't hitting ridiculous fadeaway three-pointers in the corner with Marcus Smart draped all over him. It was like you could just tell at that point, at least I could, that it just felt like the Celtics were a better team. So for me, the only way the Cavs really have a shot in this is if they pull ahead early and they kind of thrive off, the fans kind of maybe get to the Celtics, young guys a little bit. We've seen players like Rozier and Tatum sort of, I don't want to say shrink, but I think playing on the road may get to them a little bit. Especially we've seen it with Rozier.
Game 3.
Think about Milwaukee. Yeah, definitely, definitely. But in their defense, that was kind of the first one, right? So they've kind of got that shell shock.
They have that under their belt, right?
Yeah, they got that under their belt. Yeah. But I mean, listen. Speaking of Milwaukee, we just know that sometimes home court is huge, and we know that Cleveland is a tough place to play. We know that LeBron's not going to go down quietly within the night. Quietly into the night. It is LeBron's house.
Cleveland.
Well, it's his second home.
This is for you.
Toronto's his first home. Cleveland's his second.
Could be his last stretch of home games in Cleveland.
Right.
As a member of the Cavaliers.
Hot take.
So I mean, I just think that for the Celtics, it's just continue to play your game. Like I just think that for the Cavs, losing Game 2 the way they lost was awful for them because LeBron went off for 40+. He had a triple-double. Kevin Love did his thing, and they still lost. It's like
they still had bench players coming in. Like, it was garbage time at the end.
Korver had a good game, too, I thought. I mean, Korver was at one point, he was the hottest guy on the court for a little stretch there with the three-pointers. I just don't know what else the Cavs can really do. And maybe I'll eat my words and they'll totally blow the Celtics away, but I haven't seen anything yet that's going to show me that.
Well, I like what you had to say about Korver because I think it really starts with him. I think he can continue to score for them, but look at the other shooter, J.R. Smith. I mean,
garbage.
Goose egg.
Absolute
Nothing.
garbage in this
0
so
points
far.
for a starter who put up 7 attempts and couldn't convert a single one of them. I mean, they need him to get it going.
One more flagrant than points.
He's one of the weirdest players to come through this league. We've seen him explode.
He's
for
so
30,
streaky.
coming off the bench,
and then the
threes.
next game he'll drop 2, or in this case it was 0.
It's
right.
so odd.
I
do think that he'll do a little bit better at home. I think he always does. He feeds off that energy, hits a couple corner threes.
And that even dates back to his days in New York. I mean, that's just who he is. But then also, like you brought up, Jimmy, I mean, Rodney Hood, he's one of those guys that I believe can score off the dribble. A lot of guys on this team can't do that, whereas the Celtics have that to their advantage. I expect to see that from Rodney Hood a bit. But then also, one guy who I think had more of a chance in Game 2 than he did in Game 1, more of an opportunity, was Nance. And that's a guy I thought that was going to be maybe not a vital piece to this playoff run for the Cleveland Cavaliers, but he is someone that can also produce off the dribble a bit, can slash, to the hoop. Sort of reminds me of because of his Lakers days, like a young Lamar Odom in a sense, because he has that extension, of course.
Just because they're lefties, huh?
lefties, of course. Yeah, that does help. Also, he can shoot a little bit from the perimeter, can drive as well. They need somebody like that to step in, especially those two guys in particular coming off the bench.
And that's what I was kind of surprised at. Guys like Nance, guys like Clarkson, these younger
where is he in game 2?
These guys who are supposed to be the younger athletic guys that the Cavs traded for at the deadline, that were supposed to really change everything for them because they're having so much issue. And that is actually, we did this in another video, things I was wrong about. I thought the Cavs were going to just tear it up after that trade. I thought it was going to change the locker room culture for them.
They blew out the Celtics, right after the trade.
Right. I thought they were going to vault past the Celtics in the standings and go on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Well, it's not. It's just not happening.
Yeah.
It's just for whatever reason there may be a number of them. There could be a disconnect in the locker room at this point in the series or in the playoff run for them. But for whatever reason, the Celtics have just looked like the better team in the first 2 games. And I need to see something to think otherwise, other than LeBron going off for 25 or 21 in the first quarter. You just can't.
Or the Celtics just not showing up.
Can't be sustained. Right. The Celtics
if they don't show up in game 3, then it's an easy Cavs win.
But that obviously hasn't been the case. I mean, 6 players in double figures. You saw what they did in game 1, and specifically in the second half in the fourth quarter, huge stops down the stretch. Even though the Cavs did manage to get it down to 6, it was the defense that really pulled away for the Celtics, that really locked things down and closed it out in game 2.
Yeah, like who's going to get hot for the Cavs? Because for the Celtics, at least in game 2, it was Rozier, right? Yeah. It was Brown in the first half, and I think we all said, like, if the Celtics are going to have a chance in this one, somebody else has to get going. It was Rozier, and then it was pretty much like Morris a little bit, and then Horford. Those guys came through. For the Cavs, other than LeBron, and yeah, Love got his here and there, but there wasn't a stretch of where you're like, wow, Kevin Love is really feeling it right now.
Yeah. Right.
And for the Cavs, they need that other than LeBron.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what it comes down to.
We'll see who those guys are in game 3. We'll see if the Celtics can grab another one and grab a commanding 3-0 lead. I can't believe I'm saying this, but they're 2 wins away from the NBA Finals. This Boston Celtics team continues to surprise us here at TD Garden. For CLNS Media, of course, we got you covered from now until game 3 and way after that, depending on how deep this team goes, of course. CLNS Media, I am Joseph Pavone, Jimmy Toscano, Jacob, Toby.
You got it.
This has been the Garden Report.